Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure, first of all, to be invited here this afternoon and to be a part of your symposium and to bring a message, I guess, to talk about my experiences and the experiences of my community during Hurricane Fiona. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit off the cuff, and it's not going to be scripted. It's going to be a conversation just to let you know of some of the things that have happened during, before, and what's going on now in our communities. As was noted in the intro, I was involved in council since 1993 and took a leave for about 8 years and decided to come back in 2021 and decided to take another run at being mayor, and still thought I had a little bit of juice left in the tank and ready to tackle another 4 years. Little did I know, though, that it was going to probably be some of the most challenging times in my municipal career, and probably the most challenging times in my life, and the most challenging times for my community. Right after being elected in 2021, if you remember, we had the torrential rainstorms that washed out the Trans-Canada highways that connected Port aux Basques to the rest of the province, which it stopped the goods and services coming into the province, and it also it cut off our community to be able with the rest of the province. We had 4 major washouts, and I thought that was a big deal. I thought this was, wow, what a way to get back and get started into this. And we're already met with a major challenge, and we're having to haul out our plans and take a look at things. And it was met with many challenges. But little did I know, 10 months later, we were going to trump that, if I guess it's the right word to use. We were going to have another major disaster, and something that was going to affect the lives and the people of my community for many years to come. I'll lead up to just to tell you a bit. I'm trying to keep everything within the half hour, so I don't want to go over your time because I know you have a big agenda, but I'll start from the beginning and to say how the days went prior to preparing for an emergency or preparing for a storm. For us, we were getting weather forecasts for about a week. Every day we were getting little updates and details of what was going to take place. And every day it got a little more and a little more as we went along. And the day before Fiona was to strike, we were in the town hall, myself, the town manager, staff, our work superintendent, and everyone else. And we were discussing what we had done and what we've done to prepare. And that's doing your usual, in a workplace, looking at all your systems to make sure that you've checked them all, making sure everything's clear. And we knew there was a big storm coming, and we were trying to put a lot of messages out to our community. It was my birthday that day, and was spending the day at the town hall and was trying to clue things up. And about 6:30, 7 o'clock that night, I said, I think we've got done what we can do. And we decided to leave, and I was going to go out for supper with my wife. And I went to go to the local restaurant, and I got a phone call just as I pulled in on the parking lot. And it was probably one of the most important phone calls that I've ever received. And it was Eddie Shearer who had phoned me at that time. And Eddie had phoned me and he said, Mr. Mayor, he said, I feel obligated to give you a call. He had just finished the evening newscast. And he said, a lot of my colleagues and I have been chatting, and we see this storm lining up as a perfect storm. And if all things come together, it's probably going to hit you guys pretty hard and pretty heavy with major storm surges. So I explained to Eddie what we had been doing all that day. And we talked about what can we do more. And we talked about a plan, him and I said, maybe we can go back and warn all of our citizens, because we had narrowed down a time when this was going to hit the community. And maybe we can go back and tell our citizens, those that are in some areas which we think could be impacted should leave today, tonight. Some other ones should be up early in the morning watching the storm and be ready to leave. Have your, whatever you're taking with you, be ready to go. So Em and I talked for a while, and then I left and we hung up the conversation, and I went into the restaurant. When I sat down, my wife said, "You don't want to be here, do you?" I said, "No, I think we should just grab something quick and we should leave, because I think I need to go back." I left and went back. We called the council together and we had a discussion, and then we went back to the town hall. So from that evening, from 8 o'clock that evening onward, we did something the old fashioned way. We took out the roll book, what we call with the taxation book, and looking at everyone's name and looking at different areas. We brought the maps up on the screen. We looked at maps of our community, and we started calling, we started texting, we started doing whatever we can. I went on and did Facebook Live messages. And we reached out the best we could, telling neighbors to tell neighbors, you should go now. If there's a place you need to go, you should leave your home now. Some people did that. They took the warnings and they left. And some more people took the warnings and they got up early and they started to look. And that's what I did. I got up early because I wasn't in a zone where I had to really worry. But I got up early, and you could see the storm was hitting. The rains were heavy, the winds were up, and the seas were fierce. And early that morning, the town manager had called and he said, "We need to get together, but I don't think we can get to the town hall." So we decided, with conversation with the chief of staff at the medical center, we decided to go there. It was when I got at the medical center, the very first person was being brought through the door that had got swept by the sea. And it was only reason that person was saved, they held onto a vehicle that had saved them and they had pulled them in. And I'll never forget that moment when I walked in. That person was being wheeled in, and they were as purple you could be. Luckily, that person was saved and that person had made it through. But the hospital was getting ready for more people to come. And we're a small hospital center, and we were in almost like a panic mode. We had our radio with us there. The town manager had the radios, and the calls started coming in from our work superintendent. He started naming out homes and different places in the town. He said, "The house is gone. The house is gone." And that's all I could hear him say on the radio. And you could hear the panic in his voice. The houses are going. And it was at that moment I looked around, and for some reason or another, that morning when I left my house, and I don't even know why to this day, because it was sitting on a desk in my house, our disaster plan. And I had grabbed it and took it with us. And when I got there, it was still in my hand. And I, like you say, I don't know today why I grabbed it or thought that the need to grab it at that time. But I had it, and we were stood up. And then I heard a call come through that I think we've lost someone. And that's when the chills went through my body and the rest of the people who were with me. It was at that moment that we knew we were in a state of emergency. I remember signing the declaration of a state of emergency. We were in the old OR at the hospital that had been shut down for years. We were in that room under the lights, and it was when I was filling out the state of emergency to send to the province that we were in dire straits. It got sent out, and that's when we left the building to go out to try to see what we could see. And there were sections of our community we couldn't get to, as I'll show you in the slideshow in a moment. There were sections we couldn't go to because water was coming in as if the sea was just rolling in, that we were on a beach. I remember going down toward the town hall, and I watched the sea roll in and roll out. And I was thinking, you know, I've never seen this. And we were trying to evacuate people from that section of our community, and the cars couldn't come through the main roads. We were bringing them between two buildings. which was a seated area for these businesses. And I thought to myself, what are we going to face today? We still haven't found the person that they had said that went missing. Unfortunately for that person, we did have a loss of life. Person was swept out to sea. The ironic part about that is this person was well known in our community, was a great citizen in our community, very well known to many. And I don't mind today saying her name because I like to honor her every chance that I get. And we lost Thelma Lehman that day. Thelma made a drastic mistake about going back in the house, and the house was hit with a wave the same time she went in, and she was lost. And her partner had to watch it happen. So that was a very dark moment in our community. And while I was driving around to assist what was going on is when I got the call from the Premier. Premier was out of the country at the time, and he had called and asked what was going on and asked how things were going and so on and so forth. And I remember saying to him, Mr. Premier, we've just lost someone. And the phone went silent. It was when, I guess at that moment, it's when reality really sets in and you really realize that this is bigger than all of us. And we were seeing homes at that time being swept in the water, homes that had been there some for 100 years. Families upon families had lived into them. We had families that had grew up in these homes, taken the home over, raised their families, and now everything was gone. It was a very, I guess, when we talk about workplace safety and we talk about, I just attended a session here a few minutes ago about fatigue. The fatigue over the last year has been nothing more short than, it's hard for me to even describe to everybody in this room because of the countless hours that volunteers, officials, and so on and so forth, and the people involved have had to endure. It was so far in our community at that particular point in the region, not only our community, it's the neighboring communities such as Burnt Islands, Isle of Mort, Marguerite, Rose Blanche. Those communities had also faced loss of homes and properties. So far, we had 104 total loss that have been homes that have either been swept away, destroyed, or have now since been demolished and are gone out of our communities. 82 to 84 of those homes were in my community. It has changed the landscape of our community totally, as I will show you in a few moments. We also now have identified in our community that we have what we call a high impact zone. It's places where we've had so much erosion from the sea, it is not safe for these people to remain in their homes for years to come. They are today in their homes because we have nowhere else for them to go at this time. So they are staying there with a lot of provisions in place and things just in case we are to face a storm. Because as I explain to government officials on a daily basis, it won't take a Fiona anymore for these people. It doesn't need to be a major storm to affect these residents that'll be living in these houses. There are 57 of those in my community. It's 59 in total because we are going to lose 2 businesses as well. When you add all of this up in our community of only about 4,200 people, this has been a major loss in our community. We have lost residents who are rebuilding. We have residents who have bought another home in our community, but we have had residents who have since left our community and have gone closer to live by their families. And the ones who have sold their homes, they too have left. So it's you know, in a small community, everybody knows everybody. It's a big loss. to say goodbye to your neighbor, say goodbye to your friend, and knowing that they've left because they lost everything. As I go through this slideshow, and I better start it off, you'll see here on this one, Hurricane Fiona smashed into Atlantic Canada on September 23rd with record-setting intensity, washing entire homes into the ocean and downing countless trees and power lines and left hundreds of thousands in the dark. Fiona was once a major hurricane, became an extratropical cyclone before making landfall in Atlantic Canada. But that didn't mean it still didn't have a similar punch or impact as a traditional hurricane. The storm hit our community in the early hours of the morning, as I said, on September 24th. It brought a massive storm surge that came in and hit various areas of our community, and with a tremendous force. Unfortunately, like I said, we lost one of our citizens. Residents of our town, 4,000 people, were severely impacted by this storm and had to leave their homes, taking only what they were wearing in some cases, and some, who I'll show in a few moments, just left with their sock feet to get out of their homes, just in the nick of time. You can see right here, it shows a map of our community. You see the island that is in front of the mass of land there. That's called Channel Head. And that's a natural breakwater. It's there. It's the highest point on it is 22.1 meters high. And the hardest hit sections of our community were Water Street East, that you can see in the back there. And this particular piece, which I would have thought was protected by the Channel Head lighthouse area by the island, would have been disastrously destroyed totally in that area if the island wasn't there, seeing what it did with the island there. I'm going to show you this video, and you can see the island in the background, and you can just watch the waves build. If there's any sound there. And as you're watching that video, you can see the sea in the background and the island, and you're going to see that island disappear with wave after wave that started to come. This is one of the first waves that came in to hit. We're right in front, you'll see a beige 2-story apartment building. This is with the impact. In that 2-story apartment complex, just tell you one point about that, excuse me. On that night, we evacuated people from that apartment building, and we think about this every day. There was a lady living on the bottom floor. She was a paraplegic. We spent over 2 hours that night of just trying to find a location because this lady had no family in our community. We were trying to find a location where we could be able to take her safely and have her go and be able to get her in that night and to arrange the ambulances and so on and so forth. So can you imagine if we had that morning had tried to take her out of that apartment building, and we would have had first responders and other people there while they were trying to do it. So it was lucky that she was out that evening. This just shows a little bit of the area after the aftermath. This video here that I'll show you is just, it's hard to see a little bit, but it'll show you some of the water that was just coming in around people's homes. The sea was going in and out. That was just a small one, but here's one that I want to show you because it's going to give you chills as I go through. This is a little girl. Her mom and dad lived down in Water Street East, and they were still in their home when the waves were about to hit their home. She left with only in her bare feet to leave that home to get out. But this was something that she had on her phone at the time when it was happening. I know that's short, but it's short because they were trying to get out. And I'll show you their home in just a bit. As you can see here, throughout our community, it became flooded, and it was the sea had taken over parts of the community. And here you'll just get the opportunity to see just some of the destruction around. Some people took some personal videos themselves. This is just looking at some of the areas of my neighboring communities as well. This being Burnt Islands, and down around Burnt Islands where they lost, I think, about 11 homes down there. This is up in my community as homes were getting swept to sea. One family in particular was a town clerk of ours who had just retired in October. Officially retired in October. She had been off in August. She had lost her home entirely. The home that she had in front of hers that her daughter and 3 grandkids were living in was gone, and their garage, they lost everything that they had. All three dwellings that they had. You can see when the sea was hitting this home and the before and after pictures. I'm going to keep going just because of time, but this was in the Water Street East area. This was in Marguerite. This is an interesting picture. It's because I'll go to the next one. This is down by our town hall. Why I said we couldn't get at our town hall. This was totally flooded here down in this area, and this is where the sea was just coming in and out. Now I'm going to give you an example. I gotta go a little quicker here. This is Water Street East, the impacted zone that I just told you about. This is what it looked like before. This is what it looked like after. It looked like a war zone to me. This is the island that the waves had to go over. As I flick through these pictures, you'll see just some of the destruction and some of the debris in the area. Fishermen lost everything that they had in their fishing stages, commercial fishermen, and this is one of them right there. The erosion that we're faced with in the areas now, if you look in the backyards, you can see there is no backyard anymore. It's all gone. Remember the little girl leaving her house and the screams? That's her house. Thank God that she got out. That's all that was left for them to come back to. That's the apartment building in the middle of the road. You can see in this picture, way over in the distance, the yellow there, that's me over there, and that's the lady that lived in that house that collapsed. And she had managed to get through the barricades and the security that we had on the road, and she came down to the screams and hollers that I still hear in my head today, because all of her belongings were spread out all over the road. Mattresses, her bedding from her house, everything, her pictures was everywhere. Notice in this picture, even though that house shifted fully across the street, the laundry basket never left the table. It's just amazing, some of the photos. I'm going to rush through these a little bit just because of time, but you can see back where the apartment building was and the foundations and how it picked it up. So if that island hadn't been there, I don't know where the rest of that area down there would have been. Nothing left to a lot of the homes. There's Clement Crescent. This is where the unfortunate loss of life happened, and this is what it looked like after. It just wiped out everything and anything around it. The debris was everywhere. It's surprising that we got it cleaned up so quickly. These pictures will show the land mass of loss that we experienced. That's the famous blue house that you see in a lot of the pictures and newscasts. Those two people standing there are the homeowners, just looking at their home and their loss that morning. Again, another area that was hit in the community, the before and the after. I once used to go out in that backyard with this gentleman. It was a friend of mine who had a backyard there. We used to have a fire out there and sit around on a Saturday evening. You can no longer do it. There's no backyard. The debris lines are really what shows our impact zone. Some of these houses, I've just put them in there for views. It just wiped them out. Clearly, just when it hit, it destroyed them. Thankfully, no one was in them. House looks great from the front, but the back is destroyed with basements gone. Another area of town that was hit, the before and afters. I know I'm going through fast here, but it's just for time. But I wanted to get to the end because I wanted to finish by telling a message. If you look at this area, it looks so beautiful in summer, look really nice and beautiful. Right there, same thing. That's what it looked like after. Every one of those homes are now gone. They're all taken down. So it's entirely changed the landscape. It was like nothing that I've ever seen the next morning when I walked around the community and the sun was up and it was absolutely beautiful the next morning. But houses were shifted off their foundations. There was houses full of oil. There was houses full of sewer. There was houses full of everything that could have come in from the sea that were ruined beyond repair. This picture is what I want to end on today. It's probably one of the most impactful pictures that I've seen. It was during the cleanup. You can see the Canadian Reserve there. You can see the military. You can see the ground search and rescue. You can see mental health workers. You can see the town officials. Everybody came together to try to go out to clean our community and to help and to look and to find what they could for people to salvage. But it was when our community came together, our community's mental health has been affected quite a bit. My mental health has been affected. When we talk about workplace safety, is one of the things that we need to talk about is our own mental health. And it's the mental health of the people around us that work with us every day, that are on the ground doing the job. I'm one now that over the last 12 months, I've learned now something big, something that I didn't know before. And that was how important that our mental health is. And I know with this, I still today hear the sounds, hear the voices, and hear the desperation, and hear the people, and hear the screams. And so all of our workers that were out working the front line, they were all part of that. And their health and their safety is above the most important. So for all of us in the room, as I advocate today for not only for safety, I advocate for mental health as well, and how important it is to all of us. And that's why this picture says 1,000 words in my mind, because it was the coming together and the first morning to pull everybody together to know that we had a big task and a thing to pull together for all of our community. There's where the military stayed. Thankfully, they were there. And this is just the beaches that were washed out, our beautiful beaches, and destroyed parts of our beaches and our walking areas. And for all of us, it's been a nightmare. But together, and with all of you who have responded, because I want to thank all of you here today, because people have responded from all over this province, all over this country, through the US, that have responded to our community and the needs and have helped us out in many ways. Just your well wishes. I want to personally thank you from all of our communities, and to say, without you, I don't know what we would have done. And having the opportunity to speak to you today and to just bring this message, I've tried to condense it a little today, but I hope that you got a sense of what we went through. And I think all of you, if you have a disaster plan or you have a plan in your workplace, take it off the shelf, dust it off, take a look at it, and be prepared, because you never know when a disaster is going to strike. Thank you very much.